Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. I've chosen this book because it's the first book I read that was from the perspective of a completely different guy in a different culture. He's in Africa trying to get by. You know, I'm not on the floor because I've lost my mind. I thought that was another good way to illustrate perspective. I mean, I suppose I could knock it with my head. Best to be on the safe side. So we're talking today about the idea of perspective and how changing the perspective in a story can add a little bit of spice and maybe spice things up from the perspective of your protagonist or you. I've already noticed this. Underneath the sofa, I forgot this thing was here. The bike pump. I've not been cycling for ages. That's given me the idea. Why don't I go cycling more? Let's say your character's been in a kind of stuck in a rut for a little bit of a while in your story, and you want to spice. Maybe it's a World War II story. He's been in a tank for most of it. That's very claustrophobic. There's going to be at least five or six guys in there. You need one guy to do the shells, one guy to do the sandwiches, one guy to just generally keep morale up, usually humorous guy or someone who can play guitar. They can't see much of the war though. They're not having very much fun. So, you know, in that situation, you've maybe made as they say, a rod for your own back. I don't know where that comes from. Why you would be carrying a rod around. Get him out of that tank. That's the thing. The keys fall out of someone's pocket. He picks up the keys. He's out of the tank. Now, a plane. A plane is a complete change of perspective. Completely different perspective on the war. The problem then is that he's going to have to go back to base, train up for like 6 months, which might slow down the progress of your story. You could spice things up a little bit. The training, maybe he meets a lady and there's a little bit of a romance for 6 months there. How far you go with that is up to you. Probably far enough to kind of explore the idea of romance in wartime, but not so far that you're labelled as like a sex-obsessed misogynist. You know, that's just an idea. But once he gets back, imagine the view from that Spitfire looking down, murdering majorities. We hope the majority of soldiers. I would just avoid mentioning civilians entirely, particularly children. It's never good for people's mood. Now, but geez, it's hot down here. Now, it's not just what your character is doing. It's the perspective that you use for your character. You've heard of these first person, third person things. So I'll give you an example. So if it's from first person, I went down to the shop and bought a pot noodle. Now, that's exciting, isn't it? He's got a choice of pot noodles, a range of beef. There's beef and tomato, chicken and mushroom, curry. I think they do more exotic ones, but I like to stick to the classic ones. But that's exciting because it's in the first person. I went in and I've got a pot noodle and now I'm going to scoff the bloody thing. This is a different perspective. He went into the shop and bought a pot noodle. It's you're a little bit standing aside. It's almost like you're watching him, and he's like beef and onion, mushroom, chicken and mushroom, curry. Shit, I wouldn't have gone for curry, but you're commenting. You see, that's the thing with the third person. You can comment. He's gone for curry. I wouldn't have gone for curry, but that's what he wants. That's the kind of character he is. He's a spicy go-getter. He likes the curry. And then this second person. This is kind of the weird one. It's like you went into the shop. A place where it's used quite often is in the realms of role play, Dungeons and Dragons.
You approach the door and open it cautiously. You enter the room. There's a ton of flipping monsters in there. You turn around and run away like a
bloody girl. Usually reserved for people who've mistaken an alternate life in a made-up world for reality. Not really a good perspective to be coming from, unless you want to be labelled a nerd and be avoided by the opposite sex. But that's where it's used quite often. Those people kind of use it. There's those three persons from which you can do that. Oh, my neck is killing me. Just because I'm leaning up on that. Once you start messing around with perspective, you becoming masterful with your choices in your story. So, and at that point, what you don't want to do is kind of tell other people who are using these different perspectives how well they're doing. I remember a particularly embarrassing time when a friend of mine at university had written a very interesting story where he's in a barn, not a good start, But he's in a barn, he's looking for his watch. A bit better. He's got an activity going. I can't find the watch. What's he going to do? He goes up to the next level of the barn, has a look down. There's the watch. You can see it sparkling in the sun, you see, he's changed his perspective. And of course, I said to my friend, I really like the point at which you changed the perspective there. It really said something about perspective. And of course, he already knew that. He wrote the piece, and I was playing the part of the obnoxious critic at that point, who points out what the writer already bloody knows. Every time I think about that story now, my buttock does sort of wrench a little bit. So don't fall into that trap. So use perspective in your writing, and you can really change things up, make things exciting for people, subvert expectations sometimes, and really spice things up in your writing. It's an excellent strategy, and one that I would definitely recommend. I just noticed this, that a heavy duty spray glue that I'd forgotten about entirely. I don't even know how I bought that. I came to buy it. I think I was making some, I was like building a model or something. Nothing to do with role playing or painting miniatures. I'm a functioning adult.